Moment as soon as I can get kind of my act together. All right. Thank you for joining us. Feel free to continue to enjoy the refreshments that we have. Thanks to the folks who put those out so faithfully. Okay. So today we're going to wrap up our Exploring God's Economy Formation series. And so if God's economy is extravagant, as we learned about on Jubilee, and abundant abundant was Jubilee, extravagant was the woman with the nard, and generous as Mark led us through the discussion about the sower and the reaper, then what is ours to do? How can we take part in what God is doing? There's a number of answers to that question. One, answers that you can discern in your own journey with God. I hope you will conclude that one answer is to be part of stewardship at Calvary, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. The goals for today is that you would leave with a deeper understanding of what happens when you put $1 in the offering plate. Where does it go? Physically, where does it go? Who takes it? How does it get from here into the bank and into the system credited as coming from you? Also, where does it go in terms of ministry? How does that turn into seeds that are sown? And then help you understand, especially if you're new to Calvary or to the Episcopal Church, how to be engaged in this work. And so part of our work in joining God in what He is doing is to steward or manage wisely our time, talent, and treasure. And we're pretty big on time and talent around here. We talk a lot about superpowers. All of us have spiritual gifts that we've been given. And so is the feedback, gosh, is it just mostly bad for me? It just drives me nuts. No, it's not great for you either. Okay. Colin, could you pretend like it's the Bugle Boy and I'm a great singer? Okay. Colin does audio at the Bugle Boy in LaGrange, which is a great venue. So, what are your superpowers, and how are a question, an invitation is to wonder, how are you serving others based on your skills, gifts, and interests? And we're big on skills and interests here, and that's very intentional and strategic. We actually have this one-page front and back skills and interest worksheet that you just check boxes and then turn into us. And as you'll hear later, we've had 170 folks fill this out at Calvary. If you have not filled one out and consider us your place to call home, I've got copies of 10 of these today, no judgment. Raise your hand if you have not filled one of these out. We'll get you one so you can fill it out today. Okay, excellent. Yes. Okay, well, hold on just a second. Any other hands today? Okay, skills and interests? All right. Well, if you ever need, there we go. Perfect, excellent. Okay. It's easy. You can do it now even while I'm talking. Sorry we didn't pass it out for the sermon. That would have been a little distraction for you. And then a question related to this is not just what gifts has God given you that you want to be faithful with, but how do you steward your time? What is in your calendar, right? That's a great way to think about how you're stewarding your time. So that's time and talent. Then the third part is treasure. And Jesus says in Matthew 6, in the Sermon on the Mount, these are words in red, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also," which is challenging in this mine culture that we find ourselves in. So let's remind ourselves, where is Calvary's heart? At Calvary, we are a place to call home. Thank you for leading the way, Miranda. And so we have, as your vestry, your leadership team and staff, thought a lot about what does it look like as we continue to become a place to call home for more and more people. What is our vision and what are we called to? So I'm going to remind us of our vision. Some of this you've heard before, but it's always good to repeat vision as we're thinking about things like this. The first part of our 2025 vision is we serve using our gifts. The 3-year goal is to assess our gifts and train 30 new ministry leaders so that we can avoid burnout and maximize your ability to serve. Where we are after almost 1 year, we have 170 plus people's interests and skills, 130 interests, more on the way after today, it sounds like. 8 new leaders, and 23 new people serving. And that's just in the first 10 months of this year. By the way, this picture is of 3 of our Thursday lunch servers. So these are the folks who received that Bell Tower Legacy Grant that was presented earlier. Second part of our vision, we are always experimenting. We want to evaluate, discern, and resource 2 to 3 sustainable holy experiments. We're big on holy experiments here. A year in, we have the concerts at Calvary, which Mo and Evelyn mentioned, the free little library right out there, which draws, I'd say 10 people a week at least stop by and are looking, and that gives them proximity. We've done 2 wildflower gatherings, and our next one is in mid-November. We experimented with the Elgin missional community and learned what it's like when a holy experiment doesn't pan out. We have Halloween coming up on Spring Street, the Christmas parade, Mardi Gras street party with the city, and they reached out to us because of our Mardi Gras reputation, said, hey, we want to partner with you, which is pretty great. So we're doing a great job with our experiments. The third part of our vision, we want to be a safe place that brings people together. So for this 3-year goal, we wanted to revise our safety plan and build and implement a model for trauma-informed communication and reconciliation. We have many folks coming to us from other church traditions who have some trauma, and they're not quite sure if they're safe in church, if they'll be accepted as they are in church. And so we want to be safe in actuality and also figure out how to communicate in ways that bring people together. Where we are, we've developed a draft security plan for the vestry, and they have appointed a safety committee. Finally, we are building a bright future. Our goal is to develop a ministry-based master plan for our campus with an architect. A big part of this is the school is planning to move to a new campus on Highway 304. They could open their new campus as early as the fall of 2025, might be a year later than that. But either way, they're going to leave a huge swath of buildings that are quite old, empty and unoccupied. And we need to have a really clear plan for what we're going to do. This year, we've spent time identifying the process we want to use for this. It's called human-centered design. So it doesn't put buildings and doors and exits in the center. It puts people in the center of a design plan. And we've begun identifying a team who's going to lead brainstorming sessions in the spring as part of the human-centered design process. So you'll get to look to hear more about that in the spring. So these are kind of 4 of our big vision, big components of our vision. And so then the natural question is, none of this is free, so how do we fund this vision and mission that God has given us? So here's a bit about our process. So in October, so earlier this month, we invited our ministry leaders to submit their ministry plans for next year and their budget requests and have those things tied together. Also, we had them do some reflection on this year. What were your goals? What have you learned? How's it going? So that's the first step. Then, starting today and going until November 19th, we will invite you all to make a commitment or a pledge. Those are terms we use kind of interchangeably. So this is where we are. I'll fill in the rest here in a moment. But perhaps the term pledge is new to you. I know when I came to the Episcopal Church, I came from a different tradition where you just gave, and there was no annual, there was discussion about money and stewardship, of course, but we never had to fill out a pledge card. And so that's kind of a distinctly Episcopalian practice. A pledge or a commitment, this comes from the Episcopal Dictionary of the Church. That's an exciting read for you. Okay, and it's like this thick. I mean, we have our own vocabulary. Anyway, a pledge is a commitment. Let's read this. Who wants to read this for us? Who can read this for us? Nice and loud. Holly, thank you.
A commitment to give one's time, talents, and money as an expression of faith and a personal response to God's generosity. Parish members are encouraged to make an annual stewardship pledge. This pledge represents their specific Christian commitment to work, pray, and give for the spread of the kingdom of God. Parish budgets are prepared in light of the pledges received from the members. A pledge is a statement of intent, not a legal obligation. It can be changed at any time.
Excellent. Thank you, Holly. This is it's a response of faith and generosity. An important piece of this is that last part. So my wife, Heather, works. She works with Marriott. She's worked with them since 2008. And wouldn't you know it, in March of 2020, maybe you remember that time, everyone in the whole marketing division in Marriott worldwide was laid off, right? There was nothing to market. There was no one to travel. It was terrible. And so I got to experience this firsthand of reaching out to our treasurer and saying, hey, we pledged this. We need to dial it back to this. And then a year later, when Heather went back to work, being able to say, okay, Heather's gone back to work, so we can revise our pledge. And so I've done it. It's a normal part of things, so don't feel like you're signing a legal contract, because that's not quite what it is. It's a way for you to reflect on what God is doing in your life and to help us plan for what's to come. So what happens after folks make a pledge or a commitment? We take all that data, the budget requests and the commitments, and the finance committee chair, who is Randy Fritz, our treasurer, Peter Jurisic, and I sit down and we develop a first draft of the budget to see kind of where we're at. Then the finance committee reviews the budget draft, and we have a number of members on our finance committee that's appointed by the vestry. Then after it's worked through those two steps, then we come down here and the vestry reviews and approves the budget. Now the vestry, that's our term for like leadership council. We have 9 members who serve on the vestry. 3 members start each year. So we always have new folks. We have folks with some institutional knowledge. And they are elected by the parish. So the vestry reviews and approves the budget every year. Then we present the budget at our annual meeting, which this year will be at the end of January. And then every month, the finance committee and vestry receive monthly financial reports so we can see if we're 25% through the year, but we've spent 40%, that's not great. Or if we're 25% through the year and we receive 40% of our projected revenue, that's good news, right? So it just depends. An important thing, depending on the kind of church tradition you come from, is you may be used to voting on the budget at the annual meeting. That's not quite our polity. We are not congregational. So we don't, for example, we have made an adjustment to the service times coming up in January 2024. That doesn't require a vote. That's actually a decision I get to make on my own. I choose to do that in consultation with the vestry. Right? So the voting we do in the Episcopal Church is for the vestry. We vote for vestry members and empower them to make decisions on our behalf and report to us on a regular basis. Does that make sense? Any questions so far about this? Well, it's a lot of information. Okay, great. So now, what happens when you put a dollar bill into the offering plate? We just did this a little earlier. So someone gives an offering on Sunday or online, and then if it's an in-person donation, cash or check, we have 2 ushers every Sunday. After the service, they put the offering in a bag and deposit it in a secure safe, which actually drops into my office, but it is locked. I don't have the combination. I don't want the combination, and that's where it sits. It's one of the advantages to having offices in Parish Hall in an old bank building. We've got some safes. So interesting. So then on Monday or Tuesday, we have 2 trained parishioners that come in. We have a team, 2 of them each week come in, and they're our money counters. So they count together. They're not related. They count, like this is how many ones we got, this is how many tens we got, this is how many checks we got. They make copies and give that to our bookkeeper. They fill out a report, and they walk down together and deposit it at the bank. All right? And then the treasurer or bookkeeper takes the donations. Let's say it's a check that someone wrote, and it gets credited to someone's account, which is the next step. We record the parishioner donations in Realm, and that's how we can generate statements for you on a fairly regular basis, certainly annually. Important principles of how we keep things safe and honest. There's always 2 people involved, and we have a clear separation of duties. What that means is people who can write checks never count, right? So our bookkeeper doesn't count because she can issue checks that need to be signed, right? So we just have separation of duties between the collecting and reporting and the spending, just to make sure, things happen. And we don't want anybody to be tempted. So now, let's take a look when we combine all the dollars that are given. What do we spend them on throughout the year? This is a breakdown of kind of the 5 areas in our budget that we really prioritize. So of every dollar that is given to Calvary, 35 cents goes to worship. In second place, 18% goes to service and 18% goes to community and care. 17% goes to youth and families and 12% goes to formation. It's important to know these numbers were calculated without the benefit of knowing if we were going to get a curate. So Amy's ministry has not been broken into these categories, which would reflect a significant increase in formation and service, well, in all of them, really. The total costs of the budget we're in right now was $492,888. That's not a small number. That's significant. That's a lot of seeds being sowed, and hopefully there's a fair amount of fruit that we are reaping from this investment. So this is what we're investing in ministry day to day and month to month. Where does the funding come from? Where does that $492,000 come from? So this was our revenue. When you see the asterisks, that's actual revenue thus far that has outperformed where we should be this year. And for things that are just kind of average so far, we're only 10, 12, 5/6. I don't know why I'm doing all the math presentation today. Anyway, 5/6 of the way through the year. So so our commitments for 2023, you can see $344,000. Non-pledge giving is $61,000. So that would tend to be folks who are new, who came in after last year's stewardship campaign. So they haven't pledged, but they're excited about what's going on and want to be part of it. And then we have plate. So this is, if you drop a 1 into the offering, that tends to get counted as plate. If we don't know who gave it, it gets categorized as plate. Then we have some specific funds folks can give to, the Children, Youth, and Family Fund and the Music Fund. That's how we're doing there. So our total giving is $426,000. And then thankfully we have some other income streams as well. We have grants that we're receiving. So for example, Deacon Amy's, as a curate, the diocese has a grant to pay for half of her total package, which is really powerful. So I often joked and said when we were building towards hiring a curate, it's kind of like buy one, get one half off, right? And now we see it's you are. Absolutely. Couldn't be happier. We also generate rent income from the Merc shops right next door. So as the holidays come, you're looking for unique gifts, go and support the folks at the Merc because that ends up supporting us, which is exciting. And Don McCall is the chair of the Merc board. They're an independent board, and they have done an amazing job rebuilding that. When I got here, the Merc was costing us money, not good, and now they are generating significant resources every year. So then that brings our total revenue to $482, which means the budget was projecting about a $10,000 shortfall. We tend to see more giving than we estimate and a little less spending. And so these numbers tend to work out. I think last year in 2022, we finished $30 whole in the black. So that's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. All right, yeah. It takes a lot of hard work to make that happen. Questions about the pie chart and the revenue stuff? Oh, I sure can. Yes, yeah, that's not great at all. There we go. Yeah, the offering plate, that's just here to be a symbol. You know what I mean? Lord have mercy. Is that better? Thank you so much. Good. Yes, Shirley?
I'm curious about revenue from the music fund. Is that from content? I mean, I for spending, but I don't.
Yeah, that's a great question. We'll get to that in a moment. We actually have, as part of our stewardship and our commitment card, folks can give additional to funds that they're particularly interested and passionate about. That's what that reflects. Yes, yeah. Good. Yeah, Terry?
On the pie chart, you show 35% just for worship. What constitutes worship?
That's a great question. Communion wine and hosts are just really expensive. No, that's good wine we're serving. No. So part of how we generate this, so we take, for example, my stipend that I receive and Dr. West's stipend, and we break them down into categories. So I estimate how much time do I spend on worship. So that's like sermon prep and bulletins and, what are the liturgical things we're going to do. Justin spends 95% on his time on worship, and so that's how we get that number. So it involves all the people, the staff singers, all of the ministry that goes in. Right, yeah, and we do that for all 5 categories, yes, yeah. Good, okay. Oh, yes.
I don't see the bell tower
Yes.
Is that considered part of what you give for your Calvary budget?
That's a great question. We're going to answer that in a minute. The answer is no. That's a different kind of giving. This is all operating, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Thank you, Penny. So here's the, so in the mail this week, Lord willing, you'll receive the letter from us and a pledge card that looks like this. Yours will not be this large, obviously. And so this is kind of your planning document to just take some time and pray through. And I'm going to walk you through each part of it so you can kind of see the different pieces. At the top here, it says, yes, we commit to sowing in love in 2024 by, you got some options, making our first annual commitment to Calvary. So if you're new, if this is your first time doing this, that would be the box that you would check. If you've been here for a while, maybe you thought that a commitment was like in blood and you couldn't change it. Now you're more comfortable with the idea. You could check there. Continuing with your annual commitment or increasing your annual commitment to Calvary. And then there's a line here, your commitment to the general fund, that's the operating piece, is, X amount of dollars, and you fill in that number. That's kind of the top part. And the general fund allows us to do all of these things that we've already talked about. For the year is most helpful, yes. Otherwise, we have to do some math. And then the next section is kind of gets to some of the additional funds we have. You can check a box that says, I'd like to give above and beyond your commitment to the general fund to support the following areas. And this year we have 4 areas. The first is our new curate fund, which will allow us to fully fund our part of the curate position and make sure that Deacon Amy has everything she needs for the vibrant ministry she's sharing among us. Also important, we know that we will be able to pay for Deacon Amy, so this isn't like you guys show up or Deacon Amy she's going to fast in July. That's not the message. But there are, any of you who have hired employees, there's just expenses that you don't know about, and then, the diocese just, like when Amy first got here, she's like, well, there's this, and there's that, and there's this. And I was like, well, the diocese, it would have been nice if on one of those Zooms they had mentioned this, right? So it just helps us make sure we can do everything that we need for Deacon Amy. Then the music, of course, and Dr. West and our growing, thriving music ministry. The clergy discretionary fund. So the discretionary fund is a tool that allows Deacon Amy and me to meet needs that are unbudgeted that come up for folks in need. The kind of old-timey word for this was alms for the poor. So every week we have lots of people come in and say, I can't pay my electric bill. I need some money for this prescription. Whatever it is, and we meet with them. We do our best to discern if this is a real legitimate need and offer the resources that we can. When you hear the term discretionary fund, that does not mean if my car breaks down and I'd like a new car, I could go, it's discretionary fund time, let's go down to Lost Pines Toyota. That's not what it's for. It's to help folks who are in great need, and we also get to help parishioners sometimes who have financial challenges. So if that ever becomes you, come and talk to me. I know it's not easy, it's not fun, but if we can't take care of each other, then what's this all about, right? Finally, children, youth, and families. That fund supports Godly Play, Story Makers, youth on Sunday morning, youth group dinners, family fun fellowship on the weekends. One thing about this, we divide this intentionally, right? Because if folks just got really excited about Deacon Amy, like we're just, we would usually give the church, $5,000 a year, but man, we love Amy so much, we're going to give that all to her. Then guess what? We can't pay our electricity. So she has a vibrant ministry in a dark sanctuary with no power, right? So that's why we separate out operating from some of these special things. And this is an invitation to help your passion meet opportunities to give. Any questions about that part? Okay, so then when you're looking at your commitment card, there's kind of 3 areas that you could do some writing. Your commitment to the general fund, if you want to do above and beyond, and then you've put the number in there, right? So the person who really is excited about Amy would write curate fund, $5,000, and then add this line and whatever you put in here and give us a grand total. That way we're clear on what's happening, all right? Okay. Finally, at the bottom, there's a couple things you can check. If you'd like to set up automatic recurring monthly gifts, we have an easy way to do that saves us the credit card processing. If you do it online, that's a great way to do it, but we do pay a fee, incur a fee every time you do that. We can also set up what's called an ACH through your bank if that's something you're interested in, and it's automatic. Heather and I started to do that earlier this year because I'm always, Sunday's a big work day for me, so I would never get the check. If I did, it wouldn't get in the thing. And we were actually in a vestry meeting, and we were running a little low on our pledged giving, and I checked our bank account, and we just hadn't written a check in like 3 months. That's not good. And so we moved to the automatic giving, and now it's just done, and you can change it like anything else at any time. The second thing is contact me about legacy giving through the Bell Tower Legacy Fund, which we're going to talk about in one moment. And then finally, if you don't want your name included in the bulletin listing those who have made a commitment, check that final box. Starting next Sunday in the bulletin, we just believe it's helpful for all of us to have an opportunity. We want to recognize folks who are making this commitment. So next Sunday, you'll see my name, Deacon Amy's name, and the names of all of our vestry members. We always go first. I don't believe we ever ask you to do something our leaders, we are not willing to do. And so you'll see our names, but if you don't want your name included, that is fine. Just let us know. You can bring your commitment cards when you're ready. You can put them in the offering plate during worship. You can drop it by the office. There's an online option that we'll launch this week on our website. And on November 19th, on that Sunday, we will bless all the commitment cards that we have gathered together and give thanks for what God's done in our midst. Okay? Questions about the pledge card? Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, there's different types of giving. There's operating, which, like in our lives, that's groceries and gas and things like that. That's how we take care of these things, our daily, weekly, and monthly expenses. Then there's capital expenses. And so we have a great example of this, the asbestos and plaster repair project. That's a capital expense, right? That's bigger than, it's like if you do a kitchen remodel or you find asbestos in your house. It's not good. You got to address it, right? The new school coming to visit with us about their campus, the live stream system we installed a couple years ago, the new soundboard. And you can expect in a thriving church, there's going to be a capital need or opportunity every 3 to 5 years or so. And that should be separate from the way you give to the operating, right? Some folks give to capital campaigns out of, they've got savings or investments or things like that. That's how they access that. The final kind, and this is a new kind of giving really at Calvary, is legacy giving. And the question here is, how can you make your giving to legacy perpetual? So for example, if you pledge every year and you pledge $500 a month, there will be a time where you're not here to pledge anymore. You will be in the kingdom, not made with human hands. But there's a vehicle now through the Bell Tower Legacy Fund that you could give perpetually for the good of the people of Calvary and Bastrop County. So you could do that by becoming a founding member of the Bell Tower Society by completing an intention form by Sunday, January 21st. And I'm going to pass these out to everybody. It's got one page, kind of a summary. This is new, so we're just trying to communicate this in all the ways that we can. So take a look. I'm going to tell you a little more in a minute. And on the back is the intention form. It just says, yeah, I would like to include Calvary in my estate planning. All right? And you'll obviously be able to join this for years and years, but you can only become a founding member between now and January 21st. I'm going to be a founding member. We have 3 other founding members at this point. And so I can't wait to see who we can celebrate at our annual meeting on the 28th or 29th. There we go. And let's talk a little more about the Bell Tower Legacy Fund. So this is our permanent endowment. It'll never go away. We introduced it last fall. A gift to the Legacy Fund becomes a permanent part of the endowment and will never be spent. What gets spent and funds grants is the investment income from the endowment that supports non-recurring expenses and initiatives. And we got to see today, I've been waiting for this day for so long to be able to present those checks and get things rolling with the Bell Tower grants. We have this committee, I shared their names earlier. They oversee things and approve the grants and all those kind of good things. And the money is invested with the Diocese of Texas. They have what they call a participating fund where churches can participate in their investments. Now, the Diocese of Texas, I mean, we talked about, basically $490,000. That's a lot of money. Well, about 10 years ago, 12 years, the Diocese of Texas sold a hospital system, and they kept like $1.3 billion. That's with a B. And our $150,000 is invested with their $1.3 billion. That's real good money management, right? We're getting access to some of the very best opportunities in risk management and mitigation. So we're really happy about that. The grants can cover non-recurring projects and expenses that fit into one of these categories: music and worship, spiritual formation, which would include children, youth, and family ministry. So we saw that today with the youth. Community outreach, which is the open door. Formation, also the women's ministry and being able to live stream our formation on Sunday. Building improvements and debt reduction. And the first grants were awarded today, which is really exciting. So what this non-recurring part means, though, is, Amy she's involved in worship, significantly so. We would not fund a grant to cover her salary because that's recurring. That's going to happen over and over. You don't want to live off of an endowment. You want to use that to supplement what you're already doing. You can become a founding member. We talked about that. You can fill out the form to change your will. There's 2 ways to do this, and we're not lawyers. We don't want to give advice in that way, but you can contact your attorney, or you can make the Bell Tower Legacy Fund a beneficiary of an account that you feel comfortable with. And that does avoid a time-consuming probate process. So there's some options there. If you have further questions about how to do that or would like some guidance, please reach out to the members of our Bell Tower Legacy Fund. And we'll unveil the founding members on January 28th at our annual meeting. So there we go. That kind of summarizes these 3 bullets. Questions about the Bell Tower, Society, Legacy Fund, grants? Okay, excellent. How many of you are 70 and a half or older? Okay, lots of folks. So you have an additional way to support Calvary through a qualified charitable deduction if you have a traditional IRA. I don't understand this because this isn't an issue for me right now, but if you do a donation through a QCD through your IRA, then you can save on TAX. So it'll protect you from Social Security taxation, the required minimum distributions. It counts towards that, so you can save money and do good, which might allow you to do even more good or just have more money. You can contact your IRA administrator or look for QCD links on your IRA's administrator's website. We also have a couple of folks that are giving in this way, and we would be glad to partner you up with them so you can find out how it worked and maybe get some guidance and all of that. All right? We will be sending a letter to those of you that are 65 or older about the QCD for those who weren't here or who might not remember and want some more information. So look for that. So there's all these ways to give, all these ways to sow seeds. So as we finish up, let's reflect on how we are reaping in joy. I could have made 10 slides with numbers like this about our year, just this year. And I made 2. And just take a look. This is the first time this has happened in our history. This is one of the largest confirmation classes in our history. This is the largest group of students ever enrolled in our school. And we've been doing this ministry for just a couple of years. And this number likely affirms what we're all feeling, that there's just more people here, more energy, more ideas, more things to do, opportunities to grow in many different ways. Here's some more. This is new and is really powerful, that we have folks that are joining us. Some of these folks are new. Some of them are checking us out online. There's a couple in here. I won't point them out, but they lived in Cedar Park and knew they were going to move here. And so they started watching our live stream almost 2 years before they moved, every Sunday. And here's the thing, they didn't just watch the live stream like they're washing their dishes and listening. they watched and they noticed like Charlotte Pace would move from the ensemble to the choir. And they're like, well, who's that lady? I want to know who she is. Like, she's got a lot going on. They went to a thing at the Bastrop Opera House, and one of our singers in the ensemble, one of our paid singers, Terry, was there, and they're like, hey, she goes to our church. They had never stepped foot in here yet. But they felt that connected. That's a really powerful thing. We give out lots of bottles of water, which is, that's a lot of Jesuses who are thirsty. We have given water to. We've got folks attending our new women's Bible study. And man, we cracked a big ceiling at St. Francis Fest. So I think there's a lot of reaping in joy happening, and there's more going on than we can even capture. Yeah, it's good. It is good to see God at work in our midst. So as we finish